So let's jump right in. Today we're going on a little trip guided by the satirical writings of Lemuel Gulliver. He tells us about this incredible nation he discovered, a place that believed it had actually perfected politics. Welcome everyone to the Republic of Applause. Right off the bat, Gulliver is hit with this massive claim. The people there were convinced they had solved the oldest, thorniest question in human history. How do you decide who gets to be in charge? It's a really bold statement, and it sets the scene for a system unlike any other. So what exactly was this big problem they felt they'd cracked? Well, it was the whole messy, complicated, and frankly inconvenient business of traditional politics. They wanted a way out, something simpler, something more direct. You see, the old way of doing things was just a total drag. Citizens were supposed to read these long, boring documents, get bogged down in tedious debates. It was all too complicated. But their new reform? It was just beautiful in its simplicity. It was all based on instant signals, continuous feedback, and what they called public engagement. They basically traded all that complexity for a much cleaner, much faster system. So how did they actually do it? How did it work? Well, they invented a whole new way to measure a leader's value. A system built entirely, and I mean entirely, on public reaction. They called it, very fittingly, the applause system. And at the absolute heart of this system was one single, all-important number, the popularity score. Now, this wasn't like a poll you take once a month. No. This was a live, breathing, constantly updating score that showed exactly how the public felt about you at any given second. It became the only currency that mattered in politics. And the process itself was just incredibly simple. Step 1, a public figure does something, a speech, a big spectacle, any kind of gesture to get noticed. Step 2, every citizen using a little handheld device gives instant feedback, a quick thumbs up or thumbs down. And then, step 3, all those signals are tallied up instantly, changing the leader's score live, right there for everyone to see. Simple, direct, and always on. Now, as you can probably guess, a system like this had a profound effect. It completely changed what politics was even about. It stopped being about the boring business of governing and turned into a nonstop show, a constant performance designed for one thing and one thing only, to get and hold your attention. The tools these new politician performers used weren't policy papers or legislation. Their toolkit was all about speeches and spectacles. And the goal was just to get a reaction. Any strong reaction would do. Provoking anger worked great. Eliciting inspiration was also good. Wielding mockery? Fantastic! Gulliver actually said the best performers could make the crowd feel all three emotions in a single hour. So you're probably wondering, why did the citizens go along with this? Well, one gentleman explained the logic to Gulliver perfectly. He said, look, policies are hard. They're complicated, they have trade-offs, and they often end up being disappointing. But a performance? A performance is easy. You know right away if you liked it or not. It's just satisfying. And this is the really crucial part. The whole focus of the nation just shifted. People stopped arguing about laws and budgets. Instead, all the conversations you'd hear were about a leader's speaking style, their charisma, their theatrical flair. It wasn't about substance anymore. It was all about style. Okay, but hold on a minute. This brings up a huge question. If all the leaders are busy being performers, who is actually, running the country? Who's making sure the trash gets collected and the lights stay on? And what Gulliver found was pretty wild. It turns out there was a whole other layer to this government. While the performers were soaking up the spotlight, all the practical, day-to-day work of the state was being done quietly, in the background, by a completely different class of people. The difference between these two groups was just stark. You had the political performers. Their whole job was to grab attention. They were incredibly visible, and their popularity score was literally the only thing that mattered. And then you had the quiet administrators. Their job was to actually manage the state. They were practically invisible. Their popularity scores were always in the tank, and for the most part, the public just completely ignored them. So what about the average citizen in this republic? What was their role in this big political play? Well, they were the audience. And let me tell you, they took their job as spectators very, very seriously. The people here saw themselves as incredibly engaged politically. In fact, they spent, on average, several hours every single day reacting to the endless flood of performances. And to them, this constant clicking and signaling wasn't just watching TV. They truly believed that this was the act of self-governance.
And a really key feature of this system, or maybe you'd call it a bug, was its speed. The cycle of news and performance was so fast that there was basically no long-term memory. A huge scandal that erupted on a Monday would be totally and completely forgotten by Wednesday, just washed away by some new triumph or a fresh outrage. It meant leaders were almost bulletproof when it came to lasting consequences.
A scholar in the Republic pointed this out to Gulliver. He said that outrage had become their most valuable political resource. And why? Because absolutely nothing got people smashing those approval and disapproval buttons, driving up those precious engagement scores, like a good strong dose of indignation. It was the fuel that made the whole engine run.
So after seeing all of this, Gulliver kind of steps back to take it all in. He saw a society that had built this really elegant solution, but he started to wonder what problem it was that they'd actually solved.
And when you look at it, the system really did work perfectly for everyone involved. The performers got all the admiration they could ever want. The commentators who analyzed the performances got plenty of attention. The citizens felt super empowered, thinking their constant reactions were real participation. And the nation as a whole, well, it had successfully designed a system where it never ever had to deal with the difficult, quiet, and often thankless job of actually governing. And all of this leaves us with Gulliver's final, unspoken question. A question that really rings out far beyond his fictional story, and you could say feels more relevant now than ever. When leadership becomes nothing more than a performance, what happens to the quiet, essential art of governing?